Now, it's not just random fucking centrists in the Democratic Party that historically undermined Bernie Sanders that we need to talk about today. We have a little more to talk about, but first, we got to talk about fan art, and then we'll get into everything else. This one comes from Latroon, and hi, Latroon, I haven't seen you post in a while. How are you doing? This new video started making me imagine of a very vivid image. Sorry, Suris. It's Suris finds robot love. If y'all keep on making fan art of this shit, I'm gonna have to do another video of me talking to the fucking robots. I will say disgusting things to the robots on air, and I will make you all watch. Again, I will do it. In fact, actually, okay, so I looked at my numbers, and it turns out that video performed about as well as anything else, so my only argument for forcing you into this will be spite. That said, thank you very much, Latroon, for your fan art submission. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, please drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and get right into things, because this one comes actually from Fox News. This one comes from Tom Del Baccaro. It says, Democrats no longer have the #1 weapon to keep their socialist wing in line. DNC is broke and relying on outside groups for midterm help while socialist candidates win races. American politics is an ever-changing game of power and big money. That's a fucking problem. For the modern Democrat Party, that means being challenged and sometimes eclipsed by the Democratic Socialists of America, and there is little to nothing the Democrat Party can do about its rise. The United States has had many political parties in its history. They include everything from the Federalists to the Whig Party to the Libertarians and the Green Party. The current Democrat Party, that started in 1828, is the longest reigning major political party in American history. The role of the many lesser-known parties in American history has been to chasten the then dominant parties and or to champion particular issues, such as the Greenback Party, which fought for paper money in the late 1800s. While that Greenback Party is no more, paper money has replaced gold as the dominant American currency. Of course, the shortcomings of the Whig Party resulted in the rise of the Republican Party. Today, the dominance of the Democrat Party is being challenged by the Democrat Socialists of America, a modern version of the Socialist Party that began in 1901, or perhaps the American Communist Party started in 1919. DSA candidates are loudly fielding candidates across the country with no greater success than New York Mayor Zoran Mamdani's victory. The establishment, see here, Bernie Sanders, DSA revealed demands for Dem Party after socialist sweep New York elections. The establishment Democrats are raising their voices in alarm, garnering such headlines as a small band of socialists is sowing panic in the Democrat Party. From the Wall Street Journal and from NBC News, slumping Democratic establishment takes another blow with Abdul al-Said's Michigan win. Recently, Van Jones, a former advisor to President Barack Obama, warned that the DSA was hijacking the party. Good. I'm going to say this right now. Much like how there are things in the DSA that I disagree with, those are things that largely don't affect me in as much as they possibly could. I actually am not an anti-interventionist when it comes to the military. I actually believe that there are definitely situations where you need a military intervention. After all, the United States was founded on a military intervention from France, helping us. Like, I'm sorry, but it's literally woven into our fucking history. The idea that every nation always will have the best interests of its people and its surrounding nations at heart is a naive one. And that is one area where me and the DSA do not agree. However, in the things that do affect me and the people that I love to a high degree, dismantling the current medical establishment, dismantling the current prison establishment, dismantling our current law enforcement establishment, and erecting different and better versions of those things in their places are all things the DSA does stand for that I 100% agree with. Expanding worker rights and allowing people to unionize, having more protections for said unions are things that I agree with. And in fact, by having more people in unions, if there are things that the DSA does that we don't like as a populace, we then have it ingrained into our blood to fight back against that way better if we are unionized. It's kind of what the fuck a union does. Every single time that I see people claim that we need to do a general strike in the United States, I so desperately want us to, but without people being unionized, there is simply no support for doing such a thing. Having the DSA push for more unionization would definitely allow for that. Basically, handing us weapons to fight better against them should they do things we don't like is in fact a good thing. Other Democrats welcome the DSA, stating the Democrat Party is a big tent party. After all, as I wrote recently, the DSA and the Democrats are solely aligned on the major issues such as the Green New Deal, taxation, government healthcare, defunding the police, and more. They're solely aligned on these issues? They're aligned on defund the police? Then why did we just hear from the centrist Democrat guy trying to push all that away? Also, increased taxation of billionaires. That's a good thing. Government healthcare. This is a good thing. Defunding the police. You have to define what it is. Generally, I agree with it. The plain truth, however, is that the Democrat Party has no control over the DSA, and more importantly, they cannot stop it from claiming its members are Democrats and redefining the Democrat Party. Again, this is the thing that naturally happens when you have a group of people in a group, and the ideas of that group eventually change. This is just what happens with change. So, as an example, I'm going to give a non-political story for you. I can be very frustrated with the state of Magic the Gathering to just a major degree. I can't fucking stand that Commander is the primary way to play Magic. I like 1v1 competitive Magic. I played Modern. I played Pioneer. I grew up on Standard. To me, Commander is Magic the Gathering that you play when you're done playing actual Magic the Gathering. It's a side thing. That's not what it's turned into. Now, if I walk into any store and I ask somebody if they would like to play a game of Magic, the only deck they're going to burst out is a Commander deck. The days where people had Modern, Standard, and Pioneer decks on them is kind of long gone. You may be in an area where you can find people playing those things, but generally speaking, across the state, you don't really get that. Across the country, you don't really get those people. You find Commander people. And I'm not saying this by hip firing. I'm saying this because I've personally traveled the country playing Magic the Gathering, and it's all been fucking Commander. All but exactly one time in Alabama. So, I can be very frustrated with that. I can actively hate that. But I still play Magic the Gathering because it is still a game that brings people together, and it is still filled with many of my fond memories, and it is still the staging ground for many of my friends. I would love for Magic to return to what I preferred, but I recognize as I get older, and as this game gets older, it is becoming something different. And that something different is not necessarily bad. It is just different. This is why I've gotten into Riftbound. It's my ability to sit down and have a game of 1v1 competitive. If I ask anybody if they have a Riftbound deck, it's always going to be a standard legal 40-card Riftbound deck meant for 1v1. They might have a 2v2 one somewhere, but generally, that's what they have. If I want to sit down and have that conversation with somebody, if I want to sit down and have that game, I can have my 1v1 competitive game. It also helps that Riftbound's way fucking cheaper. You can build a fully competitive deck for about $100, unless you're playing Kennen, in which case, you're not a person. So, I had to actively adapt myself in order to still have the thing that I enjoy, while also recognizing that the thing that I used to enjoy has turned into something else. This may be a game instead of a political party, but I've watched this thing change around me, and I've had to adapt myself because of those changes. So I can understand a bunch of people in the Democratic Party getting really, really mad that the idea of the Democratic Party is changing around them. That they might have had a Democratic Party that largely would have been seen as, well, modern-day centrists, people who would have held political power in the 80s and, say, in the Clinton era. They may want that again, but craving that yesteryear is silly. It is, in fact, one of the main things that we criticize MAGA of doing. They constantly crave the past. They fight for the past. They fight for the past divorced of all of the context of the fucking past. And that is largely what the Democrats are doing where the DSA is concerned. They want the Clinton Democrats back. They want the wins they had under Obama again. But Obama was a drone bombing hawk. That's not something the DSA is for. They're generally very, very anti that type of shit. So where does that leave us? That leaves us with a bunch of Democrats that actively do not like where the where the winds are blowing, which means that they're aging. That's all that is. It just means they're aging. This happens to all of us at some point. The group that we define ourselves as, the habits that we think define us, the friend groups that we surround ourselves with, they change. People change, ideals change. The question is not how resistant you can be to that change, because the answer to that is always going to be you will fail. The question is, how well can you adapt to that change, and can you find good in that change when it inevitably happens? Because as more young people who recognize that having more centristy ideals pales in comparison to having further left ideals when you are attempting to actively make the Overton window better for all of us, letting us talk about things other than liberalism or fascism, you're just going to get more and more of those types. Find the good in that. Anyhow, this is so because 20 years ago, the mother's milk of politics, money, escaped the clutches of the tight-fisted control of the major parties. In the olden days, before 2010, the political parties dominated the selection of candidates through fundraising, endorsements, and expenditures on behalf of candidates. In the process, their preferred, if not chosen candidates, almost always won Democrat primaries. That power is nearly gone. Today, we live in the age of the super PAC, which, in any given race, can wield power that overpowers a major party. Starting in 2010, one outcome of the Supreme Court's decisions in Citizens United versus FEC was that a PAC could raise and spend unlimited funds to support a candidate, provided it does not coordinate with the candidate it supported. As the former chairman of the California Republican Party, I can tell you that before Citizens United, the political parties were the super PACs. No more. Evidence of that is everywhere. For instance, Elizabeth Simmons, the daughter of the late hedge fund billionaire Jim Simmons, who shares $32.5 billion in fortune with her stepmother Marilyn and two siblings, cut a check for $250,000 to New Yorkers for lower costs, the main independent group which branded itself as the official support PAC to elect Zoran Mamdani as mayor of New York City. Lavendo, hello, how's it going? First time chatter? I hope you find that this place is nice and comfy for you. Overall, New Yorkers for Lower Costs reported nearly $2 million in donations, which it spent in support of Mamdani. It is doubtful he could have won without it. Just as importantly, Mamdani, as a member of the DSA, was free to enter the race for mayor of New York as a Democrat. There's no law preventing that. The truly socialist Senator Bernie Sanders has run as a Democrat for years. Lucas says, hey, I can't believe I'm ever having to say this, but I found your OC quite enticing and attractive. I just gave your character its first nut tribute. I hope you appreciate this and make a memorial or something to commemorate this moment in your streaming career. What the fuck? I didn't mean to say that out loud. I think my text-to-speech is bugged. I don't think your text-to-speech is bugged. Also, you're not the first person, nor will you be the last. You have no idea how much porn of me exists on the internet. There is so much fucking porn of me on the internet now. I have lost control of this ages ago. I have simply given up. I can't stop it. It just happens. Lucas Hill, thank you for the follow. Okay, so that one earns the follow? There's literally porn of my character's cloning itself with its head up several asses of an Ouroboros. I'm not shitting you. It's a thing that exists on the internet. I don't get to escape it. Neither do you. Levandu says, LMAO, what the hell? Yeah, no, this is a real thing that exists. I can't show you the link to it. And the area where it sits in my Discord is cut off to people because of a series of things to prevent us from, having anybody who's a minor getting into the Discord doing stupid shit. And I fuck was so heavy. And then Real Snowfall says, why is that in here as soon as I join the stream? I'm going to give you a nut tribute as well. All right, cool. I can officially mark off on my bucket list. People masturbating to me while I talk about politics. Okay, cool. Anyways, Will says, I'm sorry, but the door closed after you stepped into the room. Sweet, I guess I need a Minuteman. Okay. Just to say, hey, me too. Same old time. It sucks in a quiet, raspy voice. I'm trying to nut right now. Fucking hell. But I don't know if he actually sucks or not. I've never actually inquired into what he does in the bedroom, nor do I care. Although the clitoris is technically a tiny dick, and if you're trying to pleasure a woman, you do suck on it sometimes, so... I mean, he probably does. I don't know why my brain went there, but Webmate says that's a lot of brand new accounts. Yeah, there's a lot of... Man, I wanted to I wanted to say crazies, and my brain used the word nutters instead. And while I meant that to mean crazy, I think it means something else in this context, and I no longer wish to have vocal cords with which to speak. So, we're gonna go back to the article now. And Neko, can you say wet bed? What the fuck does that mean? Josie says, do you think when Donnie gets pegged? Probably. I mean, look, God gave us a G-spot for a reason. And if you pretend otherwise, I mean, you're probably an atheist, which I am too. He didn't actually give me that. But, you know. Look, Squirrel Girl is our all nice girl. She beat Galactus and Doctor Doom. Access as nutters as in gooners? I guess so. But if they're real gooners, then they aren't nutting. That's kind of what makes them gooners. Overall, New Yorkers for lower costs, reportedly 2 million in donos. Just as importantly, Mamdani, member of the DSA, was free to enter as a Democrat. Beyond that, consider the Democrat National Committee today. It is not the center of political fundraising for Democrats today. The party is broke, but the Democrats are not overly concerned. Instead, they rely on super PACs to fight the midterms. That dynamic did not exist to any significant degree before 2010, nor is it likely to end anytime soon. Call it the age of the super PAC, and right now the DSA is making the most of it, much to endanger the longest reigning major political party in American history, the Democrats. You know, it's very weird to read something from Fox News that I largely agree with, though I will say, if the Democrats did not want this to be the case, then they should have been fighting tooth and nail every single time they had even a little bit of an advantage in Congress to get money out of politics. But instead, we're here, so this is a product of your own design. You had every ability to stop this. And here we are. Much like how you failed to codify Roe v. Wade, you failed to protect yourself from this shit. So here we are. We're moving further left, y'all. Hey, you made it to the end. I want to give an extra thanks to the patrons who allow me to do this full time. I want to thank Aaron Rail, Astral, Britzkrieg, Jemshin, Poundini, Red Joker, Victoria, Jonas, Craig, Tarika, Fireshard, Smiling GM, John, Dren Hadamada, Creeper, Sagitta, you know I'm not saying that last part, Sylvie Snow, Valis of Seraph, Ottoman Angel, Rooster Rachel, and Fire Panda, who are all my $20 and up patrons.